know me. So we're going to be diving into our female hormone masterclass. This is my favorite topic to talk about of all time. I love talking about women's health, women's fertility, hormones, cycle, all that kind of stuff. I do get very passionate, so forgive me if I get a little intense and passionate. I tend to talk a little fast as well. I'm trying to just shove as much information in this hour together as much as I can. But if I'm talking too fast, just raise your hand, wink at me, whatever you got to do. Just give me a holler. For those that are, well, I think we're still kind of figuring out the live stream right now, but there will be a time of Q&A at the end. Any questions you guys have, feel free to write it down. You're also welcome to stop me and ask me questions too as well. So I want this to be engaging and interactive, so feel free to kind of pitch in whatever. And yeah, I'll kind of allow for opportunities for that. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so a little bit about me for those that do not know. Some of you guys are already patients with us and we have a rapport and relationship. Some of you guys are new and fresh faces, so welcome. I am Dr. Jennnifer. I'm from Appalachian, or I'm from North Carolina. So I went to Appalachian State University, got my, in Boone, North Carolina, got my bachelor's of science in exercise science there. So I am a Carolina gal, but I'm loving Florida. I have always been on the path to PA school. So the dream was always to be a physician assistant in dermatology, which is kind of ironic considering what I kind of ended up struggling with myself. But that was always the plan all throughout high school and college. I wanted to help people. I wanted to work in science, medicine, all that kind of stuff. That was always the plan until I found the Wellness Way in 2020. And that changed the entire trajectory of my career, not only my health, my own health, but also my career and my future. I ended up going to Life University in Marietta, Georgia, and got my doctorate of chiropractic there. So we're going to talk a little bit about my story and my health journey. I am truly a product of the Wellness Way. It's the reason I'm in the career I am, is because I truly believe this mindset about health is the way and is true healthcare. So a little bit about my story. Throwback to high school days. I've been an athlete my whole life. So I've been a 3-sport athlete, been in fitness, health, all that kind of stuff. But so I didn't have any health issues at all growing up. Not until I lost in my junior year of college, junior year of high school, I lost my period for 6 months, my junior year and during cross country. So my body fat percentage got so low at the time that was, and it was a big stress to my body. Now looking back, I know what I know now. I know exactly what was happening, but at the time I was like, this is amazing. Like I don't have a period for 6 months. This is great. I don't have to worry about it. Knowing what I know now, that is not good. Not good. We definitely as cycling women want to have a cycle every month. Moving into my undergrad, so my freshman year of college, once again, never had any health issues, never had a pimple on my face. So developed serious hormonal acne, and I was put on a low-dose birth control at the time. I went to my infirmary and I was like, I don't know what's going on. They're like, oh, it's just hormonal. Here's a low-dose birth control. No big deal. That was the extent of the conversation. There was no kind of talk about risk factors or like, hey, when you get off, or hey, this is what's happening. Like, this is how it works kind of thing. It was just like, this will do the job. And guess what? It honestly did do the trick for a couple years, kind of zapped my acne up and I was good to go. However, it ended up resulting with a lot of side effects and stuff I had to deal with later on that I just did not know about. Moving on into later in my undergrad, all throughout undergrad, I ended up kind of gaining the freshman 15. I was no longer an athlete, so stopped working out a lot. Didn't really have a great relationship with food and like working out, all that kind of stuff. But I ended up developing disordered eating. I got super into the bodybuilding world, got super extreme on that end. Had a lot of OCD, developed a lot of OCD, anxiety around food and my body, all that kind of stuff. But I was still on birth control at the time. So even though I was kind of at my leanest, I developed a lot of anxiety, fatigue, all that kind of stuff as well. After I ended up graduating from my undergrad, I moved back to home to Charlotte, North Carolina. I started working full time. I was getting those clinical hours for PA school. So I was still in the path to PA school. It was always the plan. That is when my health really took a plummet. So it seems like it happened overnight, but knowing what I know now, my body was speaking to me for years to come. So I ended up having a lot of issues. So my biggest one was severe heartburn and silent reflux. I got an endoscopy and biopsy in my stomach. Was diagnosed with mild gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach, which is not really anything. I was diagnosed with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. This chronic throat pain, at one point I had to drive myself to the ER. I was in so much pain. I missed school, I missed work. It was so bad. It led to depression and suicidal ideation for me. So I genuinely was in chronic pain that it was to the point where I was like, I can't escape this pain, right? I was in chronic pain. I was taking ibuprofen like candy. At that time too, I sought specialist after specialist. They would just hit me with, hey, it's strep and flu season. It's probably that. or, it's just kind of like all in your head kind of thing as well. I was put on PPIs as well due to my acid reflux. I was put on PPIs, Zantac. It was just kind of went to specialist and doctor after doctor. So no one was giving me answers. Everyone was giving me just medications and just things to mask my symptoms. Outside of that, though, I had zero energy. I was almost fired from my job at that time because I was showing up late to work so often. I would wake up an absolute zombie. And at that time, I remember thinking, I'm lazy. I have poor work ethic, all this kind of stuff. It wasn't until I got proper testing and my doctor literally looked me in the eyes and was like, you are so tired. And it was physiologically, my cortisol was tanked. We'll get to that in a second. And I was just an absolute zombie. But at night, I was tired and wired at night. I couldn't fall asleep. I was always, always, always bloated. So here, if this is a picture I took and I'm like kind of smiling, but at that time it was like, was chronically bloated. So anything I would eat, I would just look at food and I would get acid reflux and I would be chronically bloated. And I remember taking this particular picture in particular, and just pretending like I was pregnant. Like, this is just like what I'm going to look like when I'm pregnant. How cute. Like, oh my gosh. But it was like a way I was just coping with the fact that I looked pregnant. I was bloated all the time. These couple pictures, also, I developed I was not able to lose weight. I was just gaining weight. I would just look at food once again. I would do a workout and I would gain weight. I felt like I had no control over my body. This picture in particular, I had done a really intense workout. And I just remember taking that picture and thinking like, I feel more inflamed and heavier and bigger after this workout than prior to. And I remember literally thinking like, something is wrong because I have no control over my body. I don't know what the heck is going on. I had excessive digestive issues, anxiety, mood swing, all that kind of stuff. And I was diagnosed with PCOS in 2021. So kind of the medicine cabinet I had going on. I was on birth control at the time still, Zantac. I was taking a PPI. I was on nasal spray, Tums, ibuprofen, Midol, all of that kind of stuff going on. I ended up finding the Wellness Way. In 2020, a doctor actually came and spoke at the job I was working at the time, did like a lunch and learn. And he spoke, he was a Wellness Way chiropractor. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this chiropractor can teach me, but I'll just give it a shot. I got nothing to lose, right? And found the Wellness Way, and it absolutely changed my life. Not only was he able to give me answers, he was able to give me hope. And that was the biggest thing I needed. I just felt like my body had forsaken me. There was no hope. There was no answers. This was just going to be the rest of my life, right? So restored my relationship with food, got off all of my meds, healed my gut, balanced my hormones, finally feeling control over my body, strong over skinny. And I speak a lot to women gaining muscle, getting in the gym, not for physique purposes, but to put muscle on their body. It is so, so, so important. So this is just a really quick recap of the last 10 years of my life. We're going to dive into kind of a lot of the hormonal side of things today, as far as a lot that I did to help heal my PCOS, heal my GERD, all this kind of stuff. We'll kind of keep moving forward now. So I found this quote a year and a half ago. And at this point I'm in school and everything, and I'm living this Wellness Way lifestyle. And I love this quote so much. Listen to your body when it whispers so you don't have to hear it scream. So this is so, so, so important. It's because especially as women, we have to be very intuitive with our body. Our body is always trying to speak to us. That is the job, brain-body connection. Our body is speaking to us in different kind of ways, right? So what are some examples of these kind of whispers that our body is trying to say to us, like, hey, something is wrong? Let's kind of take a moment and look at these and see if you guys have experienced one or more of these. Has anyone experienced one or more of these? Yes, we all have, right? For most of us, honestly, a lot of women, they experience majority of these symptoms every month, right? So puffy face or fingers, persistent fatigue, bloating, cystic acne, PMS, unexplained weight gain or loss, all these kinds of things have become so normalized, especially in women. It's just like, oh, this is just the curse of being a woman. This is just part of being a cycling woman. But just because it is common does not mean it's normal. And it's like, okay, if that's how you're going to live your life of like, oh, I'm just bloated and angry and this and all the time. I know now that there's a reason why our body doesn't just do things just because. Our body, once again, is speaking to us. Just like if our alarm or our oil change light would come on, engine light, whatever that light is, because we don't know cars, would come on. We would know, like check engine light. We would know, okay, let me go check like my engine or check my oil or that kind of stuff, right? We wouldn't just unscrew the bulb and be like, I don't want to deal with it and move on with our life, because at some point then our car is going to blow up. Same kind of thing with our body. Our body is trying to speak to us of like, even with my acne, like clearly there was hormonal issues, but being put on birth control was just going to mask those issues, right? Never got to the bottom of it. And then my acne came back full force with a slew of other issues that I never experienced before. And so that's that. So this is the thing. We want to listen to our body when it whispers before it speaks, before we start to experience our body screaming. So what are some examples of our body screaming to us? So These are just some depressing female stats to start. PCOS, like I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. 6 to 13% of women are diagnosed with this, and it is the most common cause of infertility. Endometriosis, 10 to 20% of women are diagnosed with endometriosis. PMS, does anyone know what PMS actually stands for? Anyone? Premenstrual syndrome, yes. And it's funny because I feel like I didn't even know that until like recently or last couple of years, but it is literally a syndrome. But we use the term PMS like it's just part of having a period. Like, oh yeah, I'm PMSing. And it's like, no, that is a syndrome. And over 75% of women experience PMS, right? Premenstrual syndrome. So having breast tenderness and mood issues, irritability, fatigue, cramps, all that kind of stuff. And 5 to 10% of women are diagnosed with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. This is kind of a much more significant disorder that our body kind of physiologically is so out of whack. We have a lot of like psychosis, a lot of severe kind of mental stuff going on right before we have our period. Lack of sex drive. When it comes to sex drive, as women, our sex drive shouldn't be really where a man's is, right? We're very physiologically different there. However, we shouldn't have zero sex drive. Our sex drive should kind of come up and down as the month goes on, as our cycle comes on or moves on. But 43% of women have say that they have zero sex drive, which is not normal, right? We should have some level of sex drive. That is a large majority of women. Fibroids, up to 30% of women have fibroids by the age of 35 and 80% by the age of 50. That is an alarming stat to literally have, masses kind of develop on your uterus, your endometrium, all of that. Infertility, 1 in 8 couples, and this is such a heartbreaking statistics and heartbreaking reality for so many people, is that 1 in 8 couples end up struggling with infertility. And that is something that most people want so badly, is to create life and create a family. And yet 1 in 8 couples deal with this. Up to 48 million women struggle with this globally. And just to speak to that just for one moment, we're not going to get into too much of infertility tonight, but infertility takes 2 to tango, right? So it's not just, a lot of the infertility struggles fall on the woman, and we deal with so much shame and guilt as far as like, if my body is broken and not able to do what it was designed to do, and all this kind of stuff. It is just as much important as far as the man to take care of his health as well, to create a quality sperm and egg to unite as well. So that's why a lot of patients that come in with they're looking for fertility kind of issue or infertility issues, I kind of get on them about like, I need your husband in here as well. We need to be working on his health, his diet, his lifestyle, his nervous system, all of that, just as much as we're working on yours. Horrible menopause. So 75% of women report hot flashes. Menopause is kind of this like demon that people think of, I feel like, is just kind of normalized into being like, oh my God, menopause is the worst. Like, gosh, like when really menopause should be this beautiful time of life. Like you've done your due diligence and you've been bled every month for the last 50 years of your life. And now you get to no longer bleed. Hormones kind of die down a little bit, and now it's a great stage of life. But unfortunately, if we have been dealing with PCOS or all these kind of symptoms, whatever they may be, all these different symptoms all throughout our cycling years, we are bound to have a really poor situation with menopause, right? So that's why it's so important, especially for my perimenopausal women in their 40s, to really dial in on supporting your adrenals, your stress, because we're kind of ramping up to kind of get to a point where our ovaries are no longer producing hormone for us, and it falls back on our adrenals. So kind of moving on with this, we've come to expect abnormal cycles. Yes, go ahead.
So that statistic on infertility in couples, do you find that there is a higher statistic based on like age range, or is that just kind of across the board?
That's a great question. I honestly, I can't speak too confidently to that as far as like age range. I do think that, a lot of women can get pregnant kind of at any time, obviously up until like menopause and everything like that. But I have patients who got pregnant in their 40s and no problem. My mom had my youngest sister at 42. So I do think that as we kind of get older, obviously we want to look into egg supply, all that kind of stuff as well. So it just kind of depends. But at the end of the day, it all kind of falls back onto the immune system, the gut, the overall inflammation in the body as well. So there's a lot of things we can dive into. So I am not concerned too much when a woman tells me she's a certain age and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? It's just like, all right, I treat the physiology the same.
Well, even more so, I'm just curious, like, are you starting to see like a growing growing number of infertility in, say, like early 20s?
Oh, younger. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, I mean, definitely. I have a patient right now who's 26, and she is trying to get pregnant. She was on birth control for a while, and she has been off birth control for several years, but she hasn't had a period in 88 days. And so she has PCOS as well. So we're seeing it definitely. Like, I honestly think that at that time in my life, when I was 23, 24, if I would have been trying to have kids, I would have been infertile at that time. So not have been able to, where my progesterone was at, all that kind of stuff too. So yes, totally, 100%. And which is devastating, because that is just not the way it was supposed to be. So we've also come to expect abnormal cycles. Prevalence of menstrual pain in young women. What is dysmenorrhea? This is kind of pain with our menstruation. So at least 30% of women have irregular periods. 80% of women report having undesirable symptoms prior to a period, and 84.1% of women report having painful cycles. So that is like an alarming stat. Majority of patients of women struggle with this. So ultimately, what is the typical answer when people have like painful cycles or irregular cycles or acne or whatever, anything regarding their hormones and their cycle? When they go to the doctor, what is their kind of go-to answer? What do you guys think? Birth control, that's right. So women's epidemic of reality of birth control. So who here knows anyone with birth control, is on birth control? Yeah, we all have either been on it ourselves or know someone, right? 62% of women of reproductive age are on a hormonal birth control. That is an alarming stat. More than half of our birth control users, however, 58% of them utilize birth control for reasons outside of not wanting to have a baby. So 31% for menstrual pain and cramps, 28% to regulate their cycle, 14% for acne, like myself, 4% for endometriosis, 11% for unspecified reasons. So there is ultimately, I am very passionate about birth control. I'm not going to make this entire birth control talk, but it's more so the fact that there's no judgment if you're on birth control or have been on birth control, whatever. I was on birth control for 6 years. It's really a matter of not knowing what birth control really does to our body and what you're signing up for. That's the thing. If I could go back to 18-year-old Jen, I would not have signed up for the potential risk factors of all the kind of stuff that I dealt with. That was so much, at that point, it was just a couple, acne around my chin. And then now I'm like dealing with so many issues. So let's get into it. How does it work? Ultimately, our brain shuts off communicating. We take the pill, for instance, our brain is shut off, but communicating between our brain to our ovaries. So our brain produces certain hormones to get our ovaries to produce hormone. And all throughout the month, those hormones are fluctuating. We'll kind of get into that in a second. To produce hormone, it suppresses our own production to postmenopausal levels. So after postmenopause, we shouldn't have zero hormone, but we should have some level of hormone, but it's way less and way less than when we're cycling. So ultimately, it's stopping ovulation. So that's the thing too, is a lot of people think that our period, the main event of our period and having a cycle is the bleed, is the period part. The main event is ovulation. The whole point of why we have a cycle to begin with is to get to a point of ovulation. We release the egg and we can have babies, right? So that is kind of that mid-month there. So that is the main event. We want to support our body to be able to ovulate properly and have a really strong ovulation to have babies, if that's one of our goals. It also thickens cervical mucus to prevent passage of sperm and changes the endometrium, so implantation cannot occur. Another way in which birth control kind of keeps pregnancy from happening. And your body is so smart, it knows it's being handed synthetic hormones, so it knows not to produce any hormone of its own. So at that time, when I was put on birth control, it was predominantly progestin. Even though it was low dose, it was still progestin. And progesterone, so my body was like, oh, I don't need to produce progesterone because I'm being handed it. So being on that birth control, being fed synthetic hormone for 6 years, when I get off birth control, they just tell you like, oh, just get on birth control. And then when you want to have babies, just like hop off and it'll be great. And you can have babies. And it's just not how it works. When you cut off the communication between your brain and your ovaries for that, especially long-term. I have a patient about 3 weeks ago. She came in, she had her, I always have a birth control conversation. Are you on birth control? Have you been on birth control? And she said she had one period, her first period when she was in 7th grade, and then they put her on birth control because it was a really bad period. And she'd been on birth control for 15 years after that. So she's never had a proper, letting her body regulate itself, find its new rhythm, all that kind of stuff. It is so sad. And now here she is pushing 30 and wants to have babies and is dealing with a lot of issues. So all this to say is that ultimately when we feed our body hormone, it's not going to produce it on its own. If we're not producing enough hormone, we need to figure out why your body is producing enough hormone. It was designed to produce hormone and detox properly. That's where we kind of get to is I always ask why. Why is our body doing what it's doing? The reality behind the pill, it is a known carcinogen. Does anyone know what carcinogen means? So it is a known cancer-causing agent. The World Health Organization classifies hormonal birth control as a group one carcinogen. That is the same category as tobacco and asbestos. It's been linked to higher risks of breast, cervical, liver, and brain cancer, especially with long-term use. That's something I even market birth control for, is like, oh, it like helps not getting cervical cancer. And but little do you know, it's like there's so much cancer causing agents in it as well. That is way much more of a risk factor. It increases blood clot risk. And this is really sits home for me. My best friend, she was diagnosed with PCOS, I don't know, 10 years ago, let's say. They put her on birth control, kind of the go-to. They put her on metformin because they know the relationship. I remember at the time they were like, oh, you're pushing towards pre-diabetic levels. Let's just go ahead and get you on metformin, instead of kind of addressing like, hey, let's talk diet, lifestyle, like let's check in, you know what I mean? Like instead of working on her blood sugar, they're like, let's just go ahead and put you on metformin. So because they know the relationship between blood sugar handling issues and hormonal issues. So she was put on birth control, she was put on metformin, and then she ended up having still a lot of symptoms. She was having hair growth in her chin, scalp hair loss, all that kind of stuff. And she ended up going to her doctor, and they're like, let's just put you on another birth control, like she's on 2 sets of birth control. Okay. So she 2 rounds, not just switching up the birth control, but 2 sets of birth control. She ended up getting a pulmonary embolism. So she ended up in the ER, literally almost died at 26 years old because of birth control. So in the 1970s, they realized estrogen increases fibrinogen, which there was a huge relationship between estrogen pills and blood clots. It raises the risk of deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, and stroke, especially if especially if you smoke or have genetic risk factors. According to the National Blood Clot Alliance, birth control pills, the leading method of birth control in the United States, increase the chance of developing a blood clot by about 3 to 4-fold. So that is huge, and that is another thing that is just not impressed upon women when they're like looking to get birth control. They just think, great, it's going to solve all my issues like my hair growth or my acne or whatever, and they don't realize this could quite literally affect your entire life. And so the other thing, it depletes key nutrients. So this is something I'm especially hate about birth control, is birth control lowers your body's levels of B vitamins, zinc, copper, magnesium, folate, selenium, and so much more. If you are on birth control right now, and aren't looking to get off, I would at least try to increase either the food you're eating with these that are high in these vitamins, or at least take them via supplementation. This affects energy, mood, thyroid, fertility, metabolism. What's worse is when women come off birth control with the goal of trying to get pregnant now, they are severely depleted of all the vital nutrients needed for baby as they are entering into pregnancy. So this is another example of, not only does it disrupt your communication between your brain and your ovaries, it depletes you of all these really vital nutrients that keeps your body healthy to end up sustaining a great pregnancy. You need to be really, really properly healthy, because your body is creating life. We are so beautifully, magnificently made that we have the gift and the beauty of making a baby inside of us. And we need to have proper nutrients, not only for a baby to grow healthy, but for us to be healthy as well. It doesn't regulate hormones, it shuts them down. So that's why I kind of say I'm on birth control for regulating my hormones. It ultimately shuts them down. It's just a mask. It is not a real period. It stops ovulation. The pill shuts down the connection between the brain and the ovaries, like you said, acts as a hormone disruptor, attaching to receptors, but not having the complete effect of our hormones, our natural hormones do. Birth control is not regulating anything. It's masking symptoms. The toxicology side of the U.S. National Institute of Health has listed the ingredients in birth control pills listed as endocrine disruptors. We're going to talk more about other areas in which endocrine disruptors can kind of sneak in our life, but birth control is a very prominent one. And last one, I love talking about the gut. I love talking about the gut. Something that it also does is it disrupts the gut. There's a link between our gut and estrogen called the estrogen gut axis. Synthetic estrogen and progestin, which I was on for 6 years, may alter gut permeability and immune inflammatory responses. Studies show a link between hormonal birth control and IBD, which is irritable bowel disease. I largely kind of attribute a lot of the severe digestive issues I ended up developing was from being on birth control for 6 years, along with other things as well. But everything plays a part, right? So all this to say, it is so important to just be knowledgeable, even for those that are not on birth control, but their nieces or their aunts or their sisters or whoever are wanting to kind of get on it. Just hopefully you learned something today and they can share them with that as well, just making an educated decision. Let's talk a little bit about the fireman carpenter principles, because this kind of ties into that. So the fireman and carpenter principle, this is kind of one of our principles here. So let's kind of paint the picture. So say you guys drive home tonight, you pull up to your home and your house is on fire. What are we doing next? Right. So we're going to call the fire department. They're going to come, 2 firemen are going to come, one with an axe, one with a hose. They're going to axe on the door. It is just up in flames. They're going to hose it down. Everything is going to be ruined, right? Our bed, our pet's bed, our picture frames, everything's going to be ruined, but we don't really care, right? We just want the fire to be put out as quick as possible. We want to save as much of the structure as we can. So the fire is put out. Ultimately, when we say we go stay somewhere else that night, right? We come back and our house is a mess, but the fire is out. Are we going to move directly straight into that home? No. So, but are we going to call the fire department again to like help us rebuild our home? No. We're going to call someone like a carpenter, right? So the carpenter is going to come in with a different set of tools and look at the house and be like, wow, this is a mess, but this is what I came to do. I'm going to help restore your home back to where it was supposed to be, and also potentially help you understand what caused the fire to begin with. Was it certain electrical wiring? Was it, the candle was sitting close to, whatever it is. It's going to help you figure that out. But they're going to help you rebuild your body, or rebuild your home back to health. So this analogy here is the fireman representing more of the medical approach. So using prescription drugs or surgeries to kind of quickly put out a fire, something that's happening within our body. Whereas the carpenter comes in and helps rebuild your body back to homeostasis, back to restorative kind of health. And that's kind of where we step in. So there's definitely a time and place to kind of put out the fire. I bring up birth control, or kind of lead with that, because birth control is a quick zap of just like, oh, you have hormonal acne? Bet. Let's put birth control on it. Oh, you have painful periods? Okay, cool. Here's birth control. It is just masking the symptoms. Ultimately, that doesn't just go away. It just is ultimately going to manifest differently, especially once we get off birth control, right? So then coming to us after a fire has been put out, to help understand physiologically what was going on with the body, help restore your body back to what it was designed to do, which is to heal. We have this controversial belief that the body was designed to heal, that the body doesn't make mistakes. Ultimately, if your body is having undesirable symptoms, it is once again your body whispering to you, your body speaking to you, and your body is trying to tell you, hey, something is wrong. Our body is so brilliantly made. Our body is never going against us. Even though it might feel like our hormones are against us, it's not. It's doing everything it can to help us survive. So just kind of analogy there that we use with our patients. Swiss watch principle, and I love this so much because this really kind of dials in. If you understand this concept, you can understand health and kind of the true healthcare approach that we have here. So different gears of the body representing different systems of the body, like a watch, right? When one gear shifts, the rest of the gears shift. These are our systems of our body, don't live on just different islands of one another, but we have kind of Western medicine has kind of separated everything out into specialists, right? You have a heart issue, you go to a cardiologist. You have a skin issue, you go to a dermatologist. Everything is separated out as if they don't impact each other. When in reality, they do. We do believe the body is globally and systemically connected. Oftentimes, a skin issue is not a skin issue. We often say the skin is the window to the gut. It's also a hormonal issue as well, right? So my integumentary system is my skin. I was having serious acne issues. It was not a skin issue, right? No matter what I put on my skin, nothing was getting better. It was an endocrine issue. It was a hormonal issue. It was also, and my hormones were a reflection of my gut, which is ultimately my digestive system, which is ultimately a reflection of my immune system, right? But this master gear is the nervous system. And it is so important. If there's one thing I could really impress upon is women, if we can kind of nail down top 3 things: women regulating our nervous system, regulating our blood sugar, and regulating our cortisol. You will feel like a brand new woman. I'm telling you, that is the game changer right there. So nervous system ultimately controls everything else, the master gear of the body. We can have the most perfect body, right? Eat everything right, look great, our organs are functioning beautifully. But if our nervous system is dysregulated and we live in that fight or flight, nothing else is going to function. Our body is thinking, I'm scared, I am not safe, I have to live in fight or flight, and stressed out to the max. Nothing else is going to function. Our reproductive organs, our digestive system, all of that kind of stuff too. So that's why it's so important. I oftentimes, when I do patient appointments, I sit down and I want to know everything about you. I tell them I want to become obsessed with you and learn everything about you, because ultimately I know that probably a piece of every aspect of your life is affecting your health, right? Your relationships, where you're living, is there mold? If you have gut issues, how are we using the restroom? Talk about, all kinds of hormonal issues as well. So everything plays a factor. Kind of leading out of that first new patient appointment, we try to figure out what is the primary cause. But nervous system, we are chiropractors here, so we'll kind of address that as well. The chiropractic component, one of the greatest things you can do for helping regulate your nervous system is to get adjusted. All right, so let's kind of dive into the cycling women here. Did you know when we are a cycling female, we are 4 different women every month? Who knew that? Did anyone already know that? Okay, beautiful, love it. So you don't have split personality disorder. You are just a woman. So I like to joke that when men marry a woman, they should really at the altar be saying, I do, I do, I do, I do, because truly you are signing up to marry 4 different women. Isn't that right, Brett? That's right. That's true. So he's here to learn about the 4 different women his wife is. Isn't that wonderful? Give it up for Brett, everyone. Woo! Brett. All right. So we are 4 different women every month. I like to kind of relate. This is a 28-day female cycle. This is just for the sake of kind of today. We're going to just pretend like all of our cycles are 28 days. That's kind of an average. 26 to like 34 is more of an average kind of cycle for everyone. Once you kind of really start tuning into your cycle, like I know mine typically falls around 31 days. 31 plus or minus 2 days is like where my cycle. If I go beyond that or lower than that, I know something is off. I've been either really stressed that month or whatever it may be. So this is just kind of how our hormones are fluctuating all throughout the month. So Jennnifer at this time in her luteal phase looks very different than Jennnifer at this time, right? So look at where progesterone is at, estrogens, all this kind of stuff. Whereas over here in follicular phase, our hormones are very low. So we're bound to just be behave differently, act differently, mood, energy, drive, all that kind of stuff is bound to be different. And so if we can really lean into these 4 different women we are and just almost fall in love with all 4 of them in different ways, we will truly end up feeling our best, looking our best, reaching our greatest potential. I like to kind of relate it to like the moon. We are like the moon, and the moon every month has different cycles, waning and waxing. It is not every time you look up at the sky, it's the same moon. And every month we're like, wow, it's a full moon. Like we've never seen a full moon before, but every month, and then there's a new moon, right? So that is kind of how we work, is we're more waning and waxing, ebbing and flowing with our hormones. Whereas a man is more like the sun. So he ends up kind of going through 4 different people every 24 hours. So he wakes up, his testosterone is, they only have to worry about testosterone, right? That's their main male hormone. So 6 a.m. testosterone is peaked. It's kind of tapering off as the day goes on. And then it does a deep dive towards the evening, and it should be at its lowest in the evening time. And then you go to sleep. Same thing with the sun. At sunrise, wakes up, and then midday is at its peak, and then kind of thing. So I like to say we are like the moon, they are like the sun, and we counteract and balance each other out beautifully. But that's why it's so important. If we try to think we are like men, and that's where kind of a lot of us have kind of fallen off, is understanding we cannot treat our bodies like a man. We are not men. We are not wired like them. We are physiologically so different, and neither one is greater or better than the other. We just have to understand there are differences within us. That's how we're designed to be. If we can really appreciate and lean into those differences, we'll even balance each other more beautifully. So these are just kind of setting them side to side. The male hormone cycle over the span of a month, let's say all of these fluctuations we're going through, men are just like boop, 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 just same old, same old. So it's kind of predictable, right? Whereas we are not, even for us, sometimes I'm like, why am I crying right now? I have no idea. It's just kind of part of it. However, even though there's these fluctuations, there shouldn't be such severe symptoms throughout our cycle as well. Some of them are definitely normal, but they shouldn't be so severe. So let's do a deep dive into kind of the phases of the female menstrual cycle now. So first things first, menstrual phase, days 1 through 7. We want to bleed ideally 5 to 7 days. So if we're only bleeding like 1 to 2 days, I'm like, awesome, great, done my period. Not good. We want to bleed 5 to 7 days because we want to shed that endometrial lining as much as we can. This not shedding your endometrial lining enough is the kind of stuff that can lead to endometriosis and lead to more bigger issues as well. So menstrual phase, we have a drop in estrogen and progesterone. That is ultimately what triggers the shedding of the uterine lining. Blood loss may result in fatigue and lower iron levels. I am a big fan of, and we'll talk about diet here in a second, but eating a fat steak day 1 of your period, day 2 of your period, we want to kind of get those. I'm a big fan of steak anyways, but definitely in day 1, day 2 of your period, you're losing a lot of iron, losing a lot of blood. Try to replenish those minerals. Encourage low intensity movement for circulation and recovery. I am not a fan of going out and running 8 miles day 1, day 2 of your period, but I'm also not a fan of just doing nothing and laying in bed all day and not moving your body at all because we're on our period, right? We do want to move our body. Is great for our uterus and those any kind of like contractions, if you will, there, and that shedding of the lining as well. Doing more kind of lower movement, low intensity movement for circulation. I'm a big fan of Vibe plates as well, sauna, anything to kind of stimulate exercise to the body without these intense exercises. Long walks, hydrate, support detox. We are flushing out prostaglandins, which are inflammatory chemicals that can lead to fatigue and cramping. So that's why we want to stay super hydrated as well. We detox one of 3 ways: through sweat, through urine, and through our stool. So we want to make sure we are using the restroom every day. We are hydrated a lot, so we're peeing a lot. And then we're also sweating too, as well. So that's why I love infrared sauna, to make sure we're kind of encouraging that sweat. Keep inflammation low. So inflammation is a big hot topic that we talk a lot about. There's a lot of ways we can do that. I have a whole talk on the inflammation talk. However, some ways we can do that is keeping inflammation low is to really be tuned into our diet. I do not encourage any alcohol when we are on our period. We're already going, think about like we're literally just walking around like bleeding. Like it's like if we're walking on our arm is bleeding. Obviously it's different, kind of we're designed this way, but it's still a big deal. We wouldn't just encourage like, hey, oh, you're bleeding like out of your arm. Here's a margarita kind of thing, right? Or here's like ice cream or these kinds of things. We want to make sure we're just really taking care of ourselves. Sometimes I have to use my uterus or even my health in general, like another being. Like I would take care of my best friend, like amazing, but why suddenly when it comes to taking care of myself, I'm just kind of like, it's fine. So definitely encourage you to really dial in on taking care of yourself. Rest and recovery, honor the low energy. This is not a bad thing. Don't feel bad. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so depleted. No, you are literally like bleeding. That is bound to have a physiological response. You're going to feel tired. Prioritize sleep. This is great time for journal and reflecting on the last month. The other phases of your cycle, you can kind of go. This is the time to just really reflect. And this is a time for hormones to be reset. So a fresh cycle begins. I just kind of almost feel like new cycle, new me. What are the things I want to accomplish this month? Moving into the follicular phase, the phase everyone loves. So this is when we have that follicular energy. Estrogen levels will rise while progesterone is staying low. So this promotes better insulin sensitivity and improved carbohydrate metabolism. This is also where it's a good time to, if you want to kind of like up your carbs a little bit, you have a better insulin sensitivity, and your body will utilize those better for exercise and all that kind of stuff as well. This is a great time to lose weight. So when we are getting discouraged by hitting intense workouts during our period or luteal phase and we're not losing weight, this is just not the right time for it, right? So really lean into those more high intensity exercises. I've been in my follicular phase the last week, and I have done if anyone hasn't used ClassPass, I highly recommend. It's great. I feel like it's so great for women because you get access to yoga and then boxing and then, sauna and like these kinds of things. It's great for women because we just can't do the same thing every single workout. So I've done like F45, boxing, like more intense energy kind of workouts. Estrogen is also steadily rising. This will boost our mood, our energy, our skin will glow, our brain will function sharper. This is a great time for creativity, learning, problem solving feels easier. This is a great time to start new projects or healthy habits, high intense workouts, which I already talked about. I will literally, for instance, this talk is happening in my follicular ovulation time, right? So I schedule these workshops that I do every month during this time because I know I have more energy, I have more bandwidth. And whereas like a week from now, things will be looking a little different, right? So just lean into that instead of fighting against it. I will even schedule like harder conversations. Like literally, if I have to have a confrontational conversation with my best friend, I schedule that towards like when I'm at my follicular ovulation. Sounds kind of funny, but it genuinely comes back to that nervous system component. Anything to kind of relieve our nervous system as much as possible, we want to do. And once again, just work with our hormones and not against them. Energy levels are generally higher, allowing for better workout performance and recovery. Ovulation phase. So this is a shorter phase. This is the main event. So we have that luteinizing hormone, which ultimately triggers the release of the egg, the ovulation. It's a peak fertility window. So this is when the body is most receptive to conception. So this idea that women can get pregnant any time of the month is just simply not true. We have like a 6-day window where we can get pregnant at around this ovulation phase. Estrogen is peaking. This is a boost in mood, energy, and motivation. A rise in testosterone, sharper confidence. We're feeling fun and flirty. Libido is higher, assertiveness, all this kind of stuff. So every woman is different, though. I will say these are kind of just a generalized over a month, but every woman is different. Sometimes women feel worse when they're ovulating, and that kind of comes down to the quality of the ovaries as well. And that's other things we'll kind of look into, but this is just kind of idealized span of the month. Leverage your energy here. Schedule big projects, social events, workouts. Lean into communication and connection. Great time for networking, date nights, all that kind of stuff as well too. Presentations. Luteal phase. So this is kind of a longer phase. So this is when we want progesterone is rising while estrogen is kind of fluctuating, okay? So this will impact metabolism, insulin resistance, and exercise performance. Also, I wanted to bring up before, estrogen is peaking in ovulation and follicular. And that's also, typically we have a higher appetite. Estrogen will lead to greater appetite. I just remember like last week, I was like, I am ravenous right now. Like what is going on? My estrogen is rising, right? When our progesterone is rising, when we're on our period, that leads to more cravings. So that's why when you're before our period comes, we tend to have more cravings. Definitely time and place to kind of lean into those cravings and understand that. But it sometimes just helps knowing like, oh, I have more cravings because of my luteal phase. Progesterone is peaking right now. This is normal. And there's definitely ways to kind of give into those cravings without blowing it kind of thing. Although when we are under high stress, however, progesterone can convert into cortisol and result in low progesterone. We'll talk about this in a second. So ultimately, we want to make sure we're very mindful of our stress and our cortisol because it can kind of pull away and deplete our progesterone as well. High progesterone also leads to body temperature, increase in body temperature, fatigue, fluid retention, may reduce endurance and strength performance. If anyone like lifts weights or kind of is consistently in the gym, you'll notice that I'm like, wow, this weight felt easier like a week ago, and now I feel weak. And that is just totally normal. It comes back to our hormones. That's why if you work out with guys, you just have to understand we're not going to be kind of improving the same way. This is a great time just to ground, to nest. You probably feel a little less social. It's a great time to like complete tasks, organize, declutter, just become a little more time with yourself. And that is fully okay. And really lean into stress management and self-care. Schedule the massage, schedule the therapy session, schedule the facial. Really just take care of yourself because your body's going through a lot. So let's talk about menopause, perimenopause for a second. So menopause is not a disease or a condition. It is a stage of life. This should be a very freeing time for women, but unfortunately, it's not like that. So kind of over the span of, X amount of years, we have our childhood years, we hit puberty, and then we're cycling, like we just talked about, for the span of, let's say, 45 years, okay? Once we hit around 55, it just kind of depends. Every woman's different. We will then hit menopause. So then we will enter our menopausal years. Our hormones will come very low. However, you see here, these are our hormones. They're kind of fluctuating up and down. Our hormones will drop. However, they shouldn't be zero. They shouldn't be zilch. When I work with my menopausal patients and they are in menopause, postmenopause, and they have no hormone, I'm like, all right, we gotta get DHEA boosted a little bit, right? We shouldn't have zero hormones, but they're obviously not fluctuating the way that a cycling woman should. So I kind of want to talk about what is typically a go-to that fireman response to really women going through menopause is a hysterectomy. So 600,000 hysterectomies are performed in the United States every year. This makes it the second most common surgery for women after a C-section delivery. So it is wild, right? It's just like, oh, we don't know what to do. Let's just take the organ out. And that is just kind of their typical response. Once again, time and place for certain removals of organs, but this is a large amount that should just not be the answer. So let's kind of talk about what our body, how our body makes hormone and why this is so important for my perimenopausal, menopausal women. So our body can produce hormone one of three ways. Once again, that brain-ovary connection, our ovary will produce hormone for us. Our adrenal glands, which sit on top of our kidneys, will also produce hormone for us, or our fat tissue. Our fat tissue can. So that's why when women that have had a terrible kind of cycling years, a lot of issues, then they enter menopause, and then their adrenals, their ovaries are no longer producing hormone for them. So then their adrenals, it's their adrenals' job to step up and produce DHEA and cortisol and enough hormone and all that kind of stuff as well. But if we've been chronically stressed out for decades, right, our entire 40s, being a wife and a mother and, a full-time job, whatever that looks like for everyone, and we haven't taken care of ourselves, then that leads, adrenals are tanked, their main stress glands. Then our fat tissue will have to step up and like, hey guys, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to produce hormone for you. So that is why a lot of women struggle, even in their 40s, to kind of start losing weight or feeling that they're gaining weight because their adrenals are shot. So that's why it's so important to get regular blood work, look into a Dutch test, blood work, all that kind of stuff to make sure our adrenals are functioning well. So the menopause expectations versus reality. Our expectations, kind of what we're taught, is that we're going to have hot flashes. That is just like go-to fatigue, hair loss, mood swings, weight gain. HRT is something that is popping up like left and right. So many women that I see even in my office are on HRT. We work with people that are on HRT. The biggest thing with HRT is we want to make sure your body's not taking that hormone and pushing it down, damaging pathways. And so we really test that through the Dutch test because that's the thing. It's not just about having enough hormone. Our body pushes it down certain pathways, and there's pathways we don't want to push it down that can lead to cancer. So that's why, especially if there's any history of breast cancer, any kind of cervical cancer, whatever, if you are on HRT, just make sure that your hormones your liver is functioning well, your adrenals are functioning well. However, our approach is to help you get to the root cause of why your body's not producing enough hormone. Osteopenia, calcium supplements are a pretty common one as well for women in menopause. The reality with the Wellness Way is to support the adrenals, like we just talked about. Regular intentional exercise. Once again, I want my women in the gym lifting weights, like putting on as much muscle as they can, however that looks like. But muscle is the longevity organ, especially for women. This is not just a dude thing. They don't need to just be the only one with great biceps. We do as well, and it's so important, especially for women as we age. Herbal support and individualized supplementation as needed is contingent on your specific testing, and we balance hormones naturally and a balanced diet. So menopause is meant to be a beautiful time in a woman's life, but just remember, just because it's common does not mean it's normal. So this goes for cycling women as well as menopausal women as well. So how do we support each cycling woman throughout these 4 menstrual cycle phases? Kylie, who's our intern, she had this quote and I love it. Caring for your cycle is caring for yourself. So the greatest way that you can give yourself self-care is to understand each different woman in your cycle and cater to those needs, right? So something I also really want to impress on, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, is it is truly a blessing being a woman. I think it's often, I'm sure we've all experienced like painful periods or just, what mood swings or whatever it is, like, oh my God, being a woman is so terrible. It's so hard. Yes. While yes, physiologically, we do have it a little more like tough than men. If we try to push that becoming like being like a man, grinding in our 9-to-5 work, full-time job and then coming home and leading everything else and just go and live in our masculine energy and not take care of ourselves. If we try to act like a man, it will be a curse. Like it is a curse, right? But if we don't and we really lean into our femininity and our cycle and understand ourselves more, it is a true blessing. And it is so fun also. Like you get to really just lean into different aspects of yourself. Like during certain parts of the month, I'm more creative. In certain parts of the month, I'm more emotional. In certain parts of the month, I want to kick ass in the gym kind of thing, And then you just experience more out of life. So that is my hope and wish for all of you guys. However, I will say if we're dealing with a lot of issues to begin with, like conditions, all that kind of stuff, it probably will take a little time before we kind of reap the benefits of leaning into our cycle like that, but it will come. So different ways. First, before we track or know our cycle, we have to track it. So there are different options as far as tracking their cycle. Did anyone track their cycle here? Anything like that? Okay, awesome, great. So after my new patient appointment with every woman of mine, if they're not tracking their cycle, I demand right now, go home, download something, start tracking your cycle, okay? And not just like, oh, I started my period this month and then don't do it again until we want to know, do you know when you're ovulating? Like, how do you feel? All this kind of stuff. So I personally use the Oura Ring. I love the Oura Ring. I use it with Natural Cycles as well. Natural Cycles is really great. You don't have to have the Oura Ring the Oura Ring has sensors inside that will track your temperature. Your body temperature is kind of plays a big part too in knowing when you're ovulating, all that kind of stuff as well. But the relationship between Oura Ring and Natural Cycles, it just kind of tracks your temperature for you. And then that way you don't have to do a temperature in your mouth every morning. But Natural Cycles is also an app. You could just do Natural Cycles without the Oura Ring as well. They'll send you a temperature thermometer. And you'll do that every morning as well. This app down here is called Lively. I haven't used it myself, but Kylie, our intern, uses it. And she loves it. And there's a lot of free apps. Flow is a great one. A lot of people start out with Flow and then kind of level up. But there's a lot of great apps out there, honestly. And it just helps you kind of understand your cycle more as well. Then there's kind of more more intense ones. So Anito is a really awesome company. They have an app. You can literally pee on this thing. There's a lot of peeing when it comes to tracking your hormones. But this will literally track different aspects of your hormones, like where you're at every day. So this is especially for someone that is wanting to get pregnant, really understand their cycle, all that stuff as well. These are just ovulation strips or LH strips. We use those a lot when people have irregular cycles. We want to take proper blood work and Dutch testing on a certain time of the month. So that's why a lot of people come in with external labs and blood work, and I look at their hormones. I'm like, do you know where you were at in your cycle? And they're like, oh, I don't know. They just said I could do it whenever. And it's once again, we are 4 different women throughout the month. So our hormones are going to look different. I need to know where you are at in your cycle. So LH strips are a great way as well. Dutch test also has some options too. We're going to dive into the Dutch test in a second. So after today, if you're not already tracking your cycle, definitely start. So some more cycling female hormone tips. So hormone fluctuations and exercise habits. So this is a really great, back to that, this chart again, right? So we want to be working out according to our cycle. This is just kind of a very generic chart. It doesn't kind of indicate the ovulation section, but days 1 through 7, being extremely careful with exercising. So going on long walks, using the Vibe plate, infrared sauna, moving our body though. We definitely want to be moving. I still think we should hit 8 to 10K steps even on our period, and just get our body moving, bringing blood flow to our organs as well. We want to do stretch, light yoga. That's when I'll do kind of more slow yoga, more of the restorative yoga as well. If you have a ClassPass membership or the yoga membership, maybe not doing the intense vinyasa hot yoga, but more of the slow ones. The days 7 through 14, this is when we are in our follicular phase. So we have all this energy. This is when I say, go for it. So go for high intense workouts, boxing, F45, just more sprints, all that kind of stuff. This is the best time to lose weight. And I often I'm not against weighing yourself, like on the scale and knowing how much you weigh. I'm more so a proponent of how you feel, and especially how you feel in your clothes, because you can weigh the same weight and you feel different, right? So also muscle weighs more than fat. So it's like we want to be gaining muscle as well. So gaining weight, if you will. I don't know why I brought that up. Easiest time to lose weight. Oh yes, so that's the whole aspect of. I would encourage you not to compare yourself to like last week Jen versus this week Jen, and how I more so to try to encourage like compare the progress I've made with this version of Jennnifer in my follicular state versus last month's and then next month. You know what I mean? Because in our luteal phase, we're going to hold on to a little more water weight. That's just normal. And then we think, oh, like I'm not losing any weight. And then, wait 2 weeks and then we'll see where we're at. So, but yeah, this is a good time to detox as well. You can handle stress better. So in your follicular phase, you just have more bandwidth. We're going to talk about sleeping here in a second, but it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, do I lean into, we've heard two things. We've heard, listen to your body, and I'm preaching a lot of that, but we've also heard mind over matter, right? So that's where we can really lean into when we're on our luteal phase or in our period, to really listen to your body, right? It's speaking to you. But then in the follicular ovulatory, it's a little bit like, no, mind over matter. Like I'm just tired because I'm just tired. I'm not like, I physiologically can handle it. I have more resilience and bandwidth for this. I'm going to hit that 6 a.m. workout kind of thing, right? And you feel great. Moving on to days 14 through 21, this is kind of, let's say after ovulation. When we come down from ovulation, we do have a kind of a big drop in our hormones. So we do want to, things kind of start to increase here with our progesterone, I should say. But we have a drop in our estrogen, and then our progesterone starts to slowly increase. So we do kind of want to take things a little easier, getting back into like yoga, walking, all that kind of stuff. We can still hit the gym, but maybe not trying like lifting weights. I'm a big fan of lifting weights, but maybe not trying to like go for a PR kind of thing, but stay consistent with moderate weight. And then the last week of your cycle, this is when you can kind of get back into more high intense workouts. What Dr. Patrick always says is that last week of your cycle will almost show you in terms of how you feel, how well you took care of yourself the last 3 weeks. So I can tell up until my period, if I'm like moody and stressed and gaining, whatever, and I'm not feeling good, it's because I look back and I'm like, oh, I had a lot of alcohol. I had a lot of sugar. I didn't sleep a lot. You know what I mean? So that's where it's like, it's so important to take care of yourself in general, but your body will eventually show it. We have our intern Kylie, who's soon to be a doctor. Where did I go? Okay, here we go. She created this cycling female exercise guide. So we have this at the very end here. We have a link to like a lot of our guides. I definitely recommend. She's gonna goes into, if you don't know where to start, like where do I start? What should I start doing? Sometimes just like being told what to do is a great place to start. So she does like a deep dive into all kinds of things as far as the cycle. Literally gives you exact workouts to do to start doing. And then as you start to really get into it more, you'll realize like, oh, I love to box instead of like a sprint class or, that kind of stuff, and lean into kind of what you like to do more. Get out there, have hobbies, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be great for you in all senses. These are an example of the exercise plan. Just a 28-day exercise plan for the cycling females. So you guys can read through that more in your own time. We will have, once again, get that link to you at the very end, so you'll have access to that. All right, one of the greatest things we can do for women is sleep. So 8 to 10 hours of restful sleep per night is what I want. Women, we need more sleep than men. Why? Because we have a lot more going on physiologically than men do, right? It's exhausting being a woman sometimes. So we need to make sure we're getting restorative sleep. This is where our body restores itself. It heals when we are sleeping. It rejuvenates when we're sleeping as well. So guys can get away with like 6 to 8 hours, right? Women, I want 8 to 10. We also have our hormonal stores as well that we need to make sure we're supporting through our sleep too. So one of the greatest things you can do for your hormones is get quality sleep. I know it's easier said than done. I'm like, yeah, just go sleep 10 hours tonight. Like it's fine. But we'll talk a lot through, there's a lot that we can do to kind of dial in on sleep. That's always something I talk about with my girls at every consultation is like, how are we sleeping? How's sleep hygiene going? We do have also a sleep guide as well. When we get you that link to you, you can look into the sleep guide. Sleep hygiene is so important, especially when it comes to our cortisol. Eating for your cycle. So there's a kind of, typical thing I see a lot is like seed cycling. Has anyone done any seed cycling or looked into it? Okay, yeah. So I haven't particularly like leaned too much into that myself. I definitely think there's, this research is there for sure. But that's always a great option. I am more so very passionate about food, and this importance when it comes to women's hormones is to eat enough fat. Fat has been so demonized. Fat is not the enemy. Sugar is the enemy, especially when it comes to our hormones. So if we're not eating enough fat, we cannot produce enough hormone. This is my favorite pathway of all time. I should get it tattooed. I should literally get it tattooed on my arm because I talk about it at every consultation and just whip it out. But every single new appointment I have, I talk about this pathway. The backbone of all of our stress hormones, so like say our progesterone, our cortisol, which is so important. Cortisol, actually speaking of cortisol, Dr. Connor is doing a cortisol talk in a couple weeks. You guys should definitely come. Cortisol is so fun to talk about. It is not a bad thing by any means. Cortisol is great. We just need to learn how to regulate it. But our cortisol, our progesterone, our DHEA, our testosterone, our estrogens, this is all of these hormones that make us who we are, is the backbone of all of them is cholesterol. And I'm not going to go down a cholesterol rabbit hole at this moment. But if we don't eat a big way that our body produces cholesterol on its own, but we also get cholesterol through our diet, right? So eating a lot of high quality fats, so like avocados, red meat, dairy, if you don't have a dairy allergy, like raw cheese, like all this kind of stuff. That is what's so important. We ultimately, a lot of my issues with women in diet in general is they're not eating enough. Like they're very rarely, I'm like, all right, babe, I gotta tone it down. No, it's like we're not eating enough calories, but we're also not eating enough of the right calories. It's a lot more carbs and not enough protein and fat. Ultimately, we need more protein and fat. That can be converted into carbs for us. Carbs can't be converted into protein and fat. So we got to make sure we're getting plenty of protein and fat in our diet. These are example of healthy fats. I am the biggest red meat advocate ever. So getting lots of steak, high quality, like red, grass-fed, grass-finished meats in your diet. Great fish. We live in Florida, so great access to seafood, all that kind of stuff. Healthy oils, avocado, eggs, duck eggs, all that kind of stuff as well. Coconut oil. Getting as much fat in your diet as you can will be a game changer for your hormones. Inner spring. These are just kind of eating for your cycle. We want to make sure, this is kind of more in depth of viewing yourself as just different seasons of our lives. So inner spring in our follicular phase, when we have all the energy, we are more springy, we are more enthusiastic, we're more energized. Inner summer is that ovulatory phase, we're feeling fun, flirty, all that kind of stuff. Inner winter is when we are menstruating, we are bleeding. So it is important to kind of take care of ourselves that way, kind of nestle in to our home or alone time. Same with our inner autumn. I'm not going to go through too much of these. These will also be on the guides as well, get access to. But just even look into this more on your own as inner winter. These are some things we want to be eating. We want to have more of like eating more warm foods, organ meats, fatty fish, beets, all that kind of stuff. A lot of red meat to kind of replenish that blood we're losing. Inner spring, we can get away with lean proteins, fruits. We can handle carbs better. So definitely fruits is the way to go. Kimchi, a lot of fermented foods always, for sure. Inner summer, that ovulatory phase, this is where we once again, lean into lean proteins. We can handle raw vegetables more, all that kind of stuff as well. Fermented foods always. And inner autumn, this is when dark chocolate is everyone's best friend. I'm a big fan of dark chocolate. I definitely don't think that dark chocolate, just finding a quality dark chocolate is really what we need. Red meat, fatty fish, eggs, all that kind of stuff as well. These are some things to avoid, what not to eat for your cycle. So alcohol, this is a big one. And so I won't go into too much detail about this. Alcohol just in general. Listen to Dr. E. Huberman's podcast he did on alcohol. It'll change your life and perspective on alcohol. But this can definitely affect our hormones tremendously, and especially issues with our liver, because a lot of hormonal stuff, it can come down to liver detox as well. Sugary foods. Sugar is definitely something that we want to make sure we are avoiding. Once again, there's a huge relationship between hormonal imbalances and sugar. Too much caffeine, soy. This is something that can act as a phytoestrogen, lead to hormonal issues as well. Highly processed foods as well. We want to just kind of cut out of our diet fast foods, highly processed foods as well. There are hidden sources of inflammation, such as just our IgE and IgG food allergies. So this is something that we want to make sure that we kind of can do testing here in the office for. This is something that we test for IgE and IgG allergies. So this is my this was a couple years ago, my food allergy test. These are all foods that I had a specific response or reaction to. And so that's the thing, is we can be eating super clean, but there might be foods that we're having an inflammatory response to that we want to make sure we're getting on top of as well. And cutting out of our diet, ultimately the root cause of all disease and conditions and undesirable symptoms is inflammation. And that's where we want to kind of really dive into what is inflaming our system. Limit toxin exposure. So this is an example where toxins have been proven to be endocrine disruptors. Certain toxins, it really untox your life. So we want to cut out the toxins. As women, we use a lot of products and makeup and candles, and we want to smell good and all that kind of stuff. Download the apps, Yucca app and Think Dirty. these are two options that are will help you kind of scan things and see, it'll kind of give you a rating and see what potential toxic ingredients are in there that can lead to a lot of dysfunction and endocrine disruptors as well. These are some really common brands. Real Casa Organics and Crunchy, we're big advocates of those as well. The ones that are more commonly, like you can find in Ulta, Sephora, Ilia, and Kosas are great brands as well. Those are super clean. So definitely start switching out your products to do everything that you can to kind of support your body. All right, so at the end of the day, we can do all the right things in supporting our hormones, but if we don't know where we're at hormonally and where to start, we can only go so far, right? So this is where we want to kind of make sure we figure out, get proper comprehensive hormone testing. So what if I told you the estrogen is not a hormone? It is a matter of three different estrogens. So there's 3 estrogens that we have. The main one, estradiol, is the big one that we look at for cycling women. Estradiol, estriol, and estrone. Our body, this is a little snippet of the Dutch test. And so your body takes estradiol, or these different hormones, and then pushes them down certain pathways. Once again, this is where you want to look at that red pathway that can lead to mitochondrial damage. This is the stuff that can lead to cancer. So this is why we want to really do a proper Dutch test to see where hormones are at as well. These are just more, not going to get into a full-blown biochemistry lesson, but it's important to know we have estrogens, and all play a different role. And the golden standard hormone testing is available that we have here is the Dutch test. And the golden standard of looking at hormones is blood work and urine. So blood work, we're seeing what is circulating in the bloodstream. There's just some example of labs that we run here. I love looking at labs so much. It just gives a great picture of where you're at all throughout, like different aspects of your body as well. And then pairing what your body is producing hormonally and what is circulating, but also pairing that with urine tests to see what your body is excreting. It's not just about if your body's producing enough hormone, it's also, is your liver detoxing hormone? How is that conversion of different to different estrogen metabolites happening as well? And so that's why it's so important. The Dutch test also will give us a picture into the adrenals as well, which is super, super important, especially for our perimenopausal women as well, to see how our stress is affecting us. Once again, the Dutch test is kind of a bigger picture of the Dutch test. So this is an example of where my Dutch test was at several years ago when I was diagnosed PCOS. So you can see here, progesterone is absolutely tanked and my testosterone is through the roof. So this is why, and then I could see what pathways my body was kind of converting them into, how I was methylating, all that kind of stuff as well. Here, you can see cortisol is just tanked as well. We should have this nice, beautiful kind of flow of our cortisol throughout the day, and I had virtually nothing. So this is why I was so depleted. That's why when my doctor saw that, they're like, you were so tired. And I was like, thank you. I am so tired. I feel like a zombie. So this is just kind of the golden standard. If you want a place to start, looking at a Dutch test and comprehensive female blood work as well. But ultimately, when it comes to hormones, they can tell us kind of what is going on, but we also need to understand why what is going on is going on as well. Hormones are just a response to the environment of the gut, whether that be blood sugar, whether it be cortisol, blood sugar issues, nervous system issues, or even our gut. So this is why I'm so passionate about doing a comprehensive look at the gastrointestinal system. So running a stool test, it's our least sexy test, but gives us a lot of information on your microbiome as a whole. At the end of the day, the foundation of your health and your immune system is your gut. So if we can get our gut cleaned up, a lot will just kind of figure itself out on its own. And then we can run hormones later down the line and kind of get more nitty gritty there. Looking at blood sugar as well, I kind of gave some snapshots of how my insulin has improved over time as well too. But that's why it's so important to, blood sugar plays a huge part when it comes to our hormones. And that's why it's just, once again, we don't guess, we test. And that's why we aren't just throwing supplements and protocols at you, just hoping that it works. We are catering them specific to what your needs are. So we challenge you to think differently about your female hormone health. Oftentimes women come to us, we kind of are like their last resort. They've tried everyone else and no one is giving them answers, just giving them more medications and medications and medications. And so this is where you've heard my story and now I want to hear yours. So ultimately, you guys heard a little bit of my story and just my journey of my acne and my body and kind of the way I've kind of improved my health so much and come so far. It's wild to think back at that time. I was looking at journal entries just to kind of get myself ready for this talk. And I'm so passionate about this because I almost forget how sick I was. I was looking back at journal entries and I was so depressed. I was so depressed. And not to make a dark turn out of this, but then the number one kind of indicator of suicide and suicidal ideation is hopelessness. And if that was at that point, if you don't have hope, you have nothing. So if you go to doctor after doctor after doctor and they're not giving you not only no answers, but then no hope, then what's the point, right? So that is why here we not only provide you answers, but we can give you hope as well. And that is what I want to always instill in my patients, especially with women, is that our answers and healing is available to you. It just takes time. And we just have to do proper testing to kind of figure out what's going on with you specifically. So where do we go from here? Scheduling a new patient appointment with me. So this is kind of what all that entails. For those that are in person here, obviously we would love to meet you in person and get that new patient scheduled, appointment scheduled. But also those that are visiting us are kind of streaming in online. We also see virtual patients as well. This is available to you as well too. So we do a comprehensive exam and a deep dive into your health history. Like I said earlier, I want to become obsessed with you and know everything about you and what you eat and how often you poop and how your mood is and all that kind of stuff. Like I want to know everything because I know everything plays a role in how you're feeling. We do a review of any external labs you've previously had run. So I always recommend my patients, if they've had recent blood work or even years ago, I want to see whatever you have, send that into us, email that into us ahead of time. Or you can bring that into us so that first new patient as well, we can scan it into your file. More information, the better for me. We do a recommendation at the end of that appointment of specific lab testing. So either I'm like, all right, we got to start looking into the gut, or let's look into the immune system, or let's look into hormones and do a Dutch and some blood work. Whatever that looks like, we'll kind of decide at the end of that appointment. We also do a full set of spinal x-rays. I am a chiropractor, so I do want to impress upon you the significance of regulating your nervous system. And one of the greatest ways you can do that is through the chiropractic adjustment. So we'll do a full set of spinal x-rays. You can see a lot on x-ray as well, not just any abnormalities with the spine, but any thyroid calcification, any GI inflammation as well, especially if there's gut issues going on. I always want to look at those x-rays. And then that includes the report of findings. So at a later date, you and I sit down, I go through all your x-rays, kind of hear, present to you what's going on, and we'll talk about chiropractic nervous system conversation. So for tonight only, if those that are not already a patient with us, I know a couple of you are patients already, but those that are not already a patient, tonight only, if you book tonight, you don't have to book this week, but just at some point schedule with us the next couple weeks. We will, you'll pay for that new patient appointment, and we'll pitch in $75 towards any labs that you're kind of deciding on. We decide on together after you leave that appointment. That is for tonight only. So those that are online as well, this is available to you too. If you want to scan this barcode for the people that are online, just scan it. Will send you to that, make that appointment as well too. But for those that are here in person, behind you, Rachel, if you could raise your hand, perfect. So she will be up at the front when you guys are heading on your way out. You can schedule with her, and she'll kind of walk through next steps and get you scheduled. Outside of that, definitely encourage you just to stay in the know. If you don't already follow us on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, we are on all of the things. Even if you don't feel ready to kind of move forward tonight with making that new patient appointment scheduled, you can kind of follow us on social media and have resources available to you. But I definitely encourage you guys that I was once, literally 6 years ago today, not sit this exact day, but maybe, I don't know. 6 years ago, I was sitting in chairs like these. I listened to this chiropractor, Dr. Kyle, come in and preach this different approach to health, and like this whole idea that the body heals itself and that you just have to get it its own way, and inflammation and all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, maybe this guy can help me. And I can't imagine the woman I would be and where I would be at in life, my body, my health, like I was miserable. And had he not found me, truly, the Wellness Way found me. I don't believe it's a coincidence you guys are here tonight. I don't believe in coincidences, honestly. There's a reason. So coincidence that your friend invited you, or your sister invited you tonight, or you found us, or you scrolled past on Instagram and you found our reel or TikTok or whatever that may be. It's not a coincidence, right? It's no coincidence either that 6 years ago I was working at the job I was working at, and this doctor came in and spoke this message. It truly changed my life, and I just can't imagine where I'd be at without it. So you are worth it. You are worth it. You are worth it. The greatest investment you will make in this life is yourself, and is in your health. Ultimately, a healthy person has 99 problems, but a sick person has one. And at that time in my life, my life revolved around my health. Like it literally robbed so much of my life from me because my health was so bad. And I just hate when now I get to make a profession out of this, of helping women with the same story. So that is just a little sob story there for you, but it's so true. I want everyone to whip out your phone for me and scan this link. This will send you to a link of the guides we have and the resources, the guides I was talking about. So that female cycle guide, sleep guide, all kinds of guides that we have. It's also going to schedule you or send you to booking in a complimentary call with us, anything like that. A lot of resources on there. So that should hopefully pull up for you just to have those resources for you as well. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, listen to me yap about my favorite topic ever, which is women's health and hormones. So are there any questions that, yes?